Welcome to the Lighthouse Financial Advisors Money Over 50 podcast with Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Lighthouse Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50. Today's topic, willpower is a myth. Dallas.
What do you mean by that?
pretty big statement. What do you mean by that?
Mate, I didn't know whether you were going to introduce that as willpower is a myth, question mark, or willpower is a myth, exclamation mark.
I had gone to write it. I've got a piece of paper in front of me with the title, and I'd gone to write a question mark. And I actually, I scrubbed over that and made it an exclamation.
It's a fact.
Mark. Because I should point out this is your topic.
My topic, yeah.
So,
I should also point out that when I say this is a fact, my wife always gives me a hard time that I say this is a fact. She says, no, you can't just say something that's your opinion as a fact. It doesn't make it a fact.
It's a theory. It's your theory.
It is my theory. So I should explain myself. So it was actually perfect timing because we were talking about this having a coffee the other day, and I made the outlandish proposition, which we often do having a coffee, that my attitude was that willpower is a made-up thing. There is no such thing as willpower, and it's a complete myth. Now, I got a few funny looks, and then over the weekend I actually read a really good book called Atomic Habits, and there's a lot of other things in the book, and it's actually a really good topic for another podcast another day, but it probably gave me a bit of language around what I mean by this statement when I say willpower is a myth, is that what I think people are thinking of when they say willpower is actually a collection of a couple of other things. So, and we've all had this where you meet someone that seems to be really disciplined and they make all the right choices all the right time, and you can't imagine them ever doing kind of the wrong thing. And we immediately go, gee, that guy's really disciplined, or he's got a lot of willpower. He's got a lot of that. And my attitude is that I've thought about this from both sides, of being the person that someone has, that people say has got a lot of willpower, and from noticing other people. And I think that what we believe is willpower is actually a collection of two different things. The first one is just your habits, and that's obviously was the thesis of this book. But so every time when you wake up, what we sort of don't realise is that human beings, we think that we're making all these decisions every day, but most of the time we're just on autopilot. You know? Every day when you wake up, you don't have to decide what am I going to do when I first wake up. You wake up, your eyes open, you go into autopilot, and you just have a system of things. You might get up, go to the toilet, brush your teeth, do this, talk to your kids, have breakfast, go to work. Whatever that routine is, that's just a habit. It's not as though every day you wake up going, geez, what should I do today? And it's probably a good time today because I noticed that, so you're in your exercise gear. You've now turned over a new leaf for the new financial year, and when I got into work this morning, you were halfway through a workout, and that's a really good example of one that people think of that as willpower, but once you've built that habit of when I get up, I just exercise. It becomes it's not a hard decision to make every day.
That's a good point. I always say when you're getting back into the exercise regime, the first 3 weeks, it's so tough to get out of bed and do it. And then after that, it becomes automatic. And it becomes harder not to do it then. You just find a way to fit it in at some stage. And if you sleep in, you might do a 10-minute really quick one later on, but you find a way to do something. So it becomes habitual from that point of view.
And that's exactly that language that I've sort of thought of before, that we've used before, is that at times, once you build a habit, like you're saying, it's actually, the whole point of a habit is that it's harder to not do it than to do it, if that makes sense. So like you say,
absolutely.
If you get up every day and you exercise, to get up and not exercise is it goes against the grain of that. So the theory of habits is that there's a pattern of you have a cue, a craving, a response, and a reward. And so if every day you wake up and you exercise, and then you feel good about yourself, and you feel good about the fact that you exercised, if you wake up...
What makes me feel even better, I get energy from knowing that me at 44, you at age 30 are still asleep while I'm exercising. And Ali, who works for us at age 24, is still sleeping, and I'm here at 44.
I've been at home reading books about habits for 2 hours,
and I'm up exercising. That gives me tremendous strength.
So that's a really good example of that's a part of that reward system. Is that it's actually harder for you to not do that, because you would then wake up and go, now I don't have anything over these guys for the rest of the day.
Mind you, I'm 105 kilos at the moment, and you guys are in the 80s. So there could be
exactly.
I did weigh in the heaviest I've ever weighed in just after Christmas.
Yeah, and that all ties into that reward system of the fact that the reward that you'll get from exercising and losing a bit of weight is really high for you at the moment, given that you feel like you're carrying extra kilos. So. But I think that's the key, is that what you're trying to do is structure your life in a way where you don't have to get up every day and go, will I exercise? You just get up every day, you do it at the same time every day, and you create those habits. And so that's the first part of, from a financial perspective or a retirement planning perspective, this is the key thing that we talk about with people, is obviously there's the technical knowledge that we have of sitting down with people, working out, where do you need to be in 10 years' time? What do you need to do between now and then? But there's a world of difference between saying to someone, you probably need to save $20,000 a year to get where you need to be to retire, versus what we do, which is sit down and go, okay, here are the BPay details for you to make an additional $400 a week in super contributions. Now, you're going to log into your internet banking. You're going to set that up as a regular transfer. It's going to happen the day after you get paid every week. You get paid on Wednesday. On Thursday, $400 will come out of that account and it will go into your superannuation fund. Yeah. And that's, again, just a habit that, and this is a good use of using technology to enforce those habits of, you set up a regular transfer like that, it's actually harder to go in and log in and stop that transfer than for it just to happen automatically. So
it is, look, it's a great nudge, and when we developed that, we thought this is the perfect thing. Obviously, expenses are variable.
Yeah.
And from time to time, people would conceivably need to miss one of those payments or to reduce it.
Yeah.
So they're within their power to actually alter that.
Yeah.
But we find if we set up that recurring on a per pay basis, so if they get paid fortnightly, the day after they get paid,
that money comes
in
out.
that example, that $400 gets pushed straight into their superannuation fund. We just find that people don't alter that.
No.
So it's just set in place. It's a great little nudge. It's making it easy for them to do.
You compare that to if you didn't have that regular transfer set up. You get paid on Wednesday. Every Thursday, two things could happen. Number one, you've got to remember to log in and make that transfer. So you've got to, I've got to find the time at some stage throughout the day. Everyone's busy, everyone's working. Find the time to log in, transfer the money, and then every week you've got to make the right decision.
That's right
for you. You've got to get in and go, I've got $1,200 that's just hit the bank account. I don't want to give up 400 of that. That hurts.
Yeah.
I've got cool things I want to do this weekend. I want to, I can think of a million other things that I'd rather do with that money than contribute to my super fund. So it's not only not only is it making it actually logistically harder to do that, but you're making it harder on yourself, because you then have to, throughout the year, you have to make the right decision 52 times compared to setting up that transfer, make the right decision once, and just leave that and let that roll along.
Well, I heard some statistics just the other day. I was listening to a podcast, and it was a financial podcast from America.
Yeah.
And superannuation in America is optional.
Yeah.
And so how it works is that if you opt in,
yeah,
and you pay in, your employer actually matches that. They have to match that.
Yeah.
Now, when so in certain states in America, it's legislated that you have to opt in.
Yeah.
And the take-up rate of
minimal.
people contributing is something like between the 20 and 30%.
Yeah.
And then other states, it's an opt out.
Yeah.
So you're opted in automatically.
Yeah, and you have to go in.
And you have to go in and opt out. Now the take up rate is something like 70 to 80%. Because it's just a perfect little nudge.
And that's exactly what I think about it, is that you can't tell me that there's two states next to each other, one's opt in, one's opt out. You can't tell me that it just so happens that 70% of the people in this state have more willpower.
That's right.
You know what I mean? It's not a willpower issue.
It's not a willpower thing, yeah.
It's a habit thing. It's that you're just structuring things in a way that you have to actively go in and change things to make the right decision, or you have to actually go in and change things to make the wrong decision.
Yes.
That's the big one, I think, is that, you know, what we think of as and that applies in many different ways. You know, like we've talked before about for budgeting, for example, if people are using their credit card for trips overseas and or domestic travel to go to weddings and things like that throughout the year, you're setting yourself up for failure, because you haven't allocated that money anywhere throughout the year, and then you go, geez, my niece is getting married in a month's time. We haven't booked flights. I need to find $1,000 for accommodation, $1,000 for flights. Where do I get that from? Bang! It goes on the credit card.
That's right. So I mean, we've talked at length over many different podcasts about people setting themselves up to fail, where they kid themselves and say that they're spending $1,000 a year on travel. And we say, well, you know, the statistics are that for the last 3 years you've spent close to $10,000.
Yeah.
Hey, let's just set up a bank account over here.
Yeah, we're going to see that.
Every fortnight that you get paid, let's put $400 into that account,
Yeah.
which is close to $10,000 over the year.
Yeah.
And you know, at worst case scenario, if you do only spend $1,000,
you got $9,000.
You've got $9,000 already saved.
Yeah.
Same thing with home maintenance. We see $1,000 a year people start putting in for the home maintenance.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to live in these houses that don't require $1,000 maintenance.
I do. It's called a rented unit. But I think that also ties into a part of it, is that, like we say, with willpower, and some of this is it's again going back to that reward system, is we somehow think that if we care enough, then that will make everything work. If we really want to save, motivation is the issue. We think that somehow that, well, I haven't saved much. I've gone and travelled for 10 grand every year for the last 5 years, but this year I'm going to really knock it down because I'm really motivated this year, because it's January and we're really amped up about it. The reality is, if you're relying on that motivation, or you're relying on, motivation to me is just another word for willpower. Yes. If you think I need to be motivated to make the right decision, I think take it completely out of that, so that it's not about how motivated are you, or because then it's again reliant on, it just has to happen that you've got a high level of motivation at the point in time when you've got to make that decision. Whereas if what we try and do is make it so that you set these habits in place. Someone comes to see us every 6 months as an ongoing client. All we're really trying to do is that we set in place their habits for the next 6 months.
That's right.
And that's, it can be about, putting money in a bank account, putting money into super, doing different things like that, capping expenses in different things, all of those sorts of behaviours. We're just trying to make it so that it's, and this is a big part of, I think, what we do relatively well compared to other financial planners, is that we know that people are human. We know that you're not going to, you might be really motivated and you might have a lot of willpower at that moment in time, but we're not relying on you making a really good financial decision every week, because some weeks you're going to be tired, sick, hungry, angry, bored.
Yep.
Any of those emotions that's going to take away your willpower, take away your ability to do those things. So we really try and structure it so that every 6 months we're just looking at, okay, what habits do we need to tweak so that you are doing everything that you need to be doing to get to that end point.
That's right, and it's significant as well. For the average couple coming to see us at 55 for the first time over those next 10 years, look, on average we're asking them for $1,200 a fortnight. In a lot of cases, that they need to put into their superannuation fund. Combined.
Yeah.
So we like to catch up with them after that's been put in place, after full pace.
Yeah.
And we find that it's habit forming after that point in time. So people report back to us.
Yeah.
that because we've taken that money as quickly as possible after they've been paid, and had it automatically going into their superannuation funds, they haven't got used to having it in their bank account. And they find, they often report back they've done it standing on their head, effectively.
Mate, that's the way that I think of it is that if I meet with someone and I say, how have you been going? Here's your finances, and they say, it's been really hard. Something's wrong. Something's got to change. If it's hard, it's not going to be sustainable over the next 10 years. And that's the way that I think of it is that things that seem hard when you're out of the habit of doing something become easy quickly. And so it's again something that it's just a matter of what are your habits, what are your routines. But I think that's always a warning sign for me is that when people, and we often have to talk people out of, they'll in January they'll be really fired up and they'll want to save $40,000 for the year, whatever the amount is that just doesn't seem feasible based on their previous history. We have to talk them out of that and go, look, if you make this too hard, if you make it so that you're going to try and put in place a habit that you can't stick to sustainably, and that every week it's a pain point for you, it's just not going to happen.
There's going to be a blowout.
There's going to be a blowout. Yeah.
And it's like if you like to eat chocolate, and you're on a diet, and you're training, like a good nutritionist will actually build in a couple of times a week.
A blowout.
Because statistics are if you don't do that, you're going to get to day 10 and just have an absolute blowout and chuck it all in, and think this is just too tough. But if you do have those little rewards along the way,
and I guess diet and exercise are really good examples of that. But that's I think the difference between what we're trying to work with our clients on is to go, okay, you're 55, you're 10 years out from retirement. What are the habits that you can put in place that you'll be able to stick to for at least the next 10 years and then also for 20, 30 years in retirement? So we don't want someone coming in doing a crash diet and eating soup for a week and then losing 5 kilos and then going crazy and putting 7 back on. We want to come up with habits that and that's a part of getting to know our clients, is to know what can they sustainably do and what's going to make their life easy as to how can they do all these things in a way that takes no willpower. We don't want anything to be reliant on, I hope my client does the right thing for the next, every fortnight for the next 6 months until I see him again. We need to take it out of our hands because no one, this is, again, going back to my thing, no one has that willpower. I think it's a myth.
And you mentioned something this morning before we are actually recording this podcast when we're having a talk, and you mentioned something about it becomes easier once you take on the persona of. So
that's I think the second part of when I say willpower is a myth. I said this the other day and I just got blank looks and I didn't really have anything to back that up. But the language that I use around that is what we consider willpower is the way that I think of it is a combination of your habits and your identity. If that makes sense. So
absolutely.
The example I used this morning is, and your identity feeds back into your habits, and your habits feed into your identity. So the example that I use for that is, it isn't hard for me to wake up every day and not have a cigarette, because I'm not a smoker. I've never been a smoker. It's not part of who I am. So, whereas someone who is a smoker and who has been a smoker for 40 years. That's a part. Not only is it a part of their habits, but it's a part of their identity. Under pressure, they have a cigarette. When after they've had a good meal, they have a cigarette. Whatever the case may be, whatever those triggers are, it's a part of who they are. And so
that's true. I mean, they have work friends that are smokers as well. And they all go and have a break and have a smoke. It is part of your identity.
A good example there of something is that a part of our identity in this office is that we drink coffee. That's what we do. We've turned Kylie from a half strength soy mocha to a double shot latte drinker gradually over time. That's a part of. Not only is it a part of our habits, but it's a part of who we are, what we do as a team, and that's kind of how we, how we bond or how we put aside time to talk to each other. That's a really good example of. It's not. There's a lot of these things that you don't necessarily sit there and beat your chest and go, "I'm a coffee drinker." But if you think about your life, you go, "It is a part of who you are."
Yes.
It may be that you're a father or a husband, or all these sources of your identity,
Yep.
they are a part of who you are.
Yep.
And so your choices are then not that. It's not a hard thing to, when you become a parent, before you're a parent, it seems bizarre to think, I'm going to go and change a dirty nappy. You can't imagine doing that, but then you go, well, I'm a father. That's what you do. It's just, and I guess where I say that your habits and your identity tie in together, it's a similar sort of thing of the example that I read about in this book and I thought was really interesting is that if you're someone who really cares about your health, which is I think we are, it's not in January you go, right, I got to kick this into gear, but you're not thinking I've got to punish myself and I've got to get up and flog myself. What you're actually thinking is, I'm someone who cares about my health. I like to feel good. That's a part of who I am. Yeah. So I'm going to get up every day and exercise. It's not I'm someone who doesn't care about this and it's just this is something that I do every day. It becomes a part of who you are.
It does, yeah.
And that's I think something that we kind of, when we talk about, we've said many times in this podcast that people come to see us for the first time at either 50 or 55 and something just changes in their brain where they go from I'm a young person, I'm a long way away from retirement to, geez, I'm 55. Like I'm 10 years out from retirement. And so all of the different things that we're talking to people about, if we'd brought that up with them 6 months before they'd had that identity shift of I'm getting ready for, I'm a person who's close to retirement. Yeah. It'd be crazy. If we said to someone, you need to put money into super, what are you talking about? I'm young, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Once you make that switch to I'm someone who's getting ready for retirement. It's a part of my life. I'm getting prepared to be retired. I'm going to be a self-funded retiree. All these different things tie into that.
That's a good point because so you contend that once you have decided that you are a pre-retiree, that you're approaching retirement, it becomes easier to do the right thing.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
it becomes easier to feed back into those habits. Which is something I've never appreciated before.
Yeah.
So
well, I think that's where I'm saying the two tie in together. Is that if I said to a 30-year-old, hey, you need to put some money into super. The habit is the same for a 55-year-old and a 30-year-old. I'm trying to get them both to put in place a habit, but 30-year-old, that's not a part of their identity. That's not a part of how they see themselves. No. Whereas someone who's 55, and in a lot of cases, this is a thing that changes for people, is that, and that's why we break it down to say you've got 10 years to go, you've got 260 fortnightly paychecks or whatever it is to go. This is a part of your life. This is a part of who you are. You can either hide from that reality or you can face it and go, I'm someone who's preparing for retirement. And so then when you say to that person, hey, here's a good habit that we should build, we should start putting that money into super, it fits straight in with their identity and how they see themselves and where they see themselves in their life stage, compared to saying to a 21-year-old, hey, you should put some money into super. It's completely not gelling with who they are. So, and that's kind of where I say, so that would be my equation, is rather, willpower is a myth. I don't think that's the thing that actually helps people achieve results in any way. I think that what we consider willpower is really just a combination of your habits and your identity, and they sit there in a self-fulfilling prophecy where if you see yourself as a healthy person, it's very easy for you to then set up habits. And if you're a healthy person and you get on Woolworths online, you don't buy chocolate and chips and all the rest of it. You buy vegetables and lean meat, things like that turn up. And then when that turns up at your house on Tuesday and you have a system in place for, this is how I cook a healthy dinner every night, those habits then tie into next week when I'm making that Woolworths order. It's the habit then ties into, well, I'm clearly a healthy person because I've been eating healthy for the last week. Yep. So then when I make that next order, it's just easier for me to. So that's kind of where those two things are tying into each other always. Your habits and your identity, and you're either moving more towards the type of person that you want to be, or you're moving away from that. And that's, I think, we've talked about people getting ready for retirement, but you would have seen this before, where I've seen people that are in a position where they could be a self-funded retiree, or there's many things that they could take advantage of, but they don't see themselves as in that position, and they think that it's out of my control. It's up to the government. I'm going to be on Centrelink anyway. There's nothing I can do about it. And sometimes you want to shake these people because you're going there. You've got 10 years to go. You're in a position where you could take control of all these things, but that's not a part of their identity.
It like the pennies just dropped there, because it is strange sometimes when you see those people. You think like it's not time to absolutely panic, but it's getting close.
Yeah.
And they seem to be so nonchalant, and then they're buying this and buying that. And you think, what's
that identity shift hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So, and that's where we talk all the time about people in their 50s, but I think there's something about that where it's more of a mindset than anything. And mindset's the word we use, but really it's an identity. Is that we have people who come and see us for the first time at 62, and their identity is, if their identity is I'm someone who's going to do what I can to get ready for retirement, then we're happy to work with those people, because that's a part of who they see themselves at, is I'm someone who's getting ready for retirement, and that's our job, is to help them get ready for retirement. And you might have someone who's 48, and if they see themselves as, well, I'm someone who wants to make a bit of a change and get ready, and they're probably a bit younger and a bit older than our average, but it's more around how do you see yourself, where like you're saying, we've had other people who come in and they're 57, and what we would think of as prime time, that we really need to make some changes here and get ready. But if they haven't made that shift in terms of how they see themselves, it isn't going. None of the habits, none of the routines that we can put in place, none of it's going to stick.
Look, usually I like to debate something and argue with you, but
but I've just gone
in this podcast, I actually can't. I can't find fault with your theory here.
Well, like I say, the habits and the routines and the rest of it are a thing that we think about a lot, and so I'm sure we'll have another podcast, and you'll find something in this theory of mine that you can. But I think that there's probably, like I say, the language around this is the key. Is that we both know that when you're meeting with people, willpower or motivation isn't the thing that decides whether they are going to get there or not. In the same way that if when you meet people that want to get healthy, everyone in January, everyone wants to lose weight, everyone wants to save money. It's not about how motivated you are or even how much willpower you've got. You don't meet those people that go, I've got a lot of willpower, I'm going to lose weight this year. Yeah. What you do meet is people who go, right, I've joined a gym with a mate and we go at 6 o'clock every morning. Yeah. And on Monday every week, my Woolworths order turns up and it consists of the meal. This is the meal plan that I've got, and this is when I cook, and this is when I do that. Those types of people, they can't help but lose weight.
Yeah, it's right. I see your point. It does become part of their identity. Yeah. It's habitual. Yeah. They feed back into each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
Making rules of thumb. This is what we do. Yeah. On every morning or every second morning. Yeah. At 6 a.m.
That's right. Whereas someone who they've got the motivation and they think that, and they've probably got a little bit of willpower because it's January and they feel terrible and they want to go and feel better, and so they'll wake up randomly at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday morning and go to the gym, and then and then they might decide they're going to go to the shop and buy the ingredients to make a salad. Yeah. And that's all admirable and great, but you can see that the wheels are going to fall off because no one has the capacity to do that on an ad hoc basis every week for the 52 weeks of the year. You just know that they're going to do that for a week, and then it's going to get too hard. By Friday, they're tired, they're over it, they don't want to go and exercise, and they just want to order Uber Eats or pick up some takeaway food or something like that. So I think that's the big thing, is that, like many things in life, we can all look around us and you see someone, and I think this is a part of it, is that we have where I say it's a cycle that ties in, we have, as human beings, we have the ability to change these things. Is that what we hear a lot is people go, oh, I'm not good with money, or I'm not much of a saver. Again, that may have been the case, but you have the capacity to both change your habits around that and your identity around that. Yeah. And those two things will tie in together, and the next 10 years if you're 55, the next 10 years is going to come and go. You can either be someone who identifies as, well, I'm not good with money, and it's all out of my control, and there's nothing I can do about it. And I guess I should do some things, and maybe save some money. But or you can be someone that goes, I haven't necessarily been good with money, but I'm someone who's getting ready for retirement. That's a part of who I am. That's a part of what I'm about, and I'm going to put things in place so that every fortnight, every week, I'm doing something to move me in the right direction.
A great theory. Potentially factual.
Potentially factual. That's a great race, isn't it? Potentially factual.
Potentially factual. Add that to the list. So in wrapping up, well, let's wrap this up.
Yeah. So I guess anytime you hear the word willpower or motivation or discipline or something like that, I think you should reframe how you think about that and try and think, and particularly when we're with our self-talk, when we say, I need to be more motivated, or I need more willpower, or I need more discipline, stop what you're doing right then and think and reframe that to go, how can I put in place habits that will become a part of my identity so that this just happens automatically? So that's, I think, for ourselves and for our clients, we think about is that it's not about willpower. We're not out there looking for people who have a lot of willpower and are going to be able to stick to this plan through sheer bloody mindedness. We are looking for people that we can help to change their habits, change their routines, and then that will form a part of their identity, and then that will make it easier to stick to those habits, and that will all go through in a virtuous cycle.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Lighthouse Financial Advisors. We look forward to catching up again soon.